From first hunts to lifelong traditions, we're here to honor the heritage, hear the passion, and connect through the stories that make us all hunters. Grab your gear, find your stand, and listen in as we share another journey that shapes a hunter's legacy. This episode is brought to you by Logic Hunt, an app designed for the future of hunting, helping you prepare with purpose and pursue with precision. What's going on, man?
No, not a whole lot. Just, as the blue collar man would say, living the dream.
So we're here with Taylor Harris. Taylor, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit outside of hunting.
Um, so I'm a small town Iowa native, born and raised. Currently live in Rhinebeck, Iowa. I graduated from the high school here at Gladbrook Rhinebeck in 2011. I worked for contracting business out of Rhinebeck for 13 years and just recently took a job at the Iowa DOT in September of 23. Then I got married in October of 23 and had my son in July of 24. So it's been a busy last 18 months to 2 years, but it's been pretty cool. So
I see you repping the dad hat.
yep. July 12th of 2024, my son Knox was born. So
That's a pretty cool name.
yep, me and my wife decided on that and gave him his grandpa, or I should say great grandpa on her side. His middle name is Dean, so that's how his name came about. So he's getting to that fun stage now. His personality is coming out. He's 9 months old and he likes to show his attitude once in a while. So I say he gets it from his mom, but she doesn't like I say that.
It's always fun from my perspective. I don't have any kids, so I like when the kids give me attitude.
Yeah. At first you're like, whoa, what was that? And it's like that was me at that age. I see where you get that from. So
Glad to have you on here. We met at the Iowa Deer Classic, and you stopped by and I talked you into using my app, so kind of
yes,
stayed in
sir.
touch a little bit. Have you listened to any other episodes yet?
I have listened to every single one of them. Actually, yesterday I listened to the third one. I had to run down to the headquarters of Ames and go get some signs for a detour on the job that I'm working on. So it was perfect timing. It's about an hour and 15 down there. So the episode was an hour and 14 minutes or whatever. So it was picture perfect.
What are you thinking so far?
I like it. I like the rawness of it. Don't get me wrong, listening to the big time pursuit channel guys is great and all, because they've done it all. They've hunted the big animals, got them and whatnot. But I like the guys like us that we struggle more than we succeed.
Speak for yourself, man. 100% success rate.
Right. So I'll see you on the pursuit channel next year.
Gosh, I hope not. I hope not.
I'm right there with you. Like I said, just the rawness of the whole thing and being able to relate to everyone so far as the mistakes they've made or stories that they've had or where they came from in the outdoors and that stuff. It's just really cool to actually be able to relate to it more than say a hunting pro or whatever. So but
Yeah, I kind of came up with the idea. So I tried another podcast with some buddies a couple of years ago before I actually launched Logic, and it was just me and a couple buddies chit-chatting about hunting, and I think we kind of tried being too much of an advice podcast or
hmm
wasn't unique enough. So we stopped doing that, and as I started Logic, trying to find ways to relate more to people using Logic and get to know my customer base. So that's kind of where I came up with this idea. And I really like it because the last two guests that I recorded, they'll be a couple weeks out, but
hmm
they just reached out to me on social media asking if they could come on. I'd never talked to them before, so it's just kind of a cool way to meet different people.
absolutely. I mean, social media is a great way to be able to do that. I mean, imagine trying to do this. I mean, podcasts really haven't been around that long. Trying to do this 5, 8 years ago before they really took off. So it's really cool.
I'll have to get a map and try getting every single state.
That would be pretty cool. That would be That'd be something, especially to hear just the different demographics of hunters out west or east or far northeast or down south in the southern part of the states. It'd be kind of cool to hear everyone's stories.
We haven't really spread too far out. You're the third or fourth from Iowa. The two randoms that I interviewed, one was from Ohio and one was from Kentucky. So we need
Okay.
to spread out a little bit further.
Right? Get out of the, what do they call that? The mid South, past the mid
Yep.
South.
Yep. So I got people I know in Texas and Florida. We'll hit those guys up.
Absolutely.
Be interesting to get some of these smaller states.
Yeah. Where are you from? Vermont.
Vermont. I think I've heard the Vermont. I don't know. It seems like I've heard stories about Vermont. I just can't remember.
I know there's some just from, so when I worked for that contracting company, I traveled the United States. I was gone about 300 days out of the year.
No
Uh,
kidding.
yeah, and that was on average. The highest was like 330 some days in a year or whatnot. But so I got to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different places, and some people met a couple guys out in Eastern Ohio that were from Vermont, and just talking. They hear we're from Iowa. They ask about the hunting and just talking and talking, and then they would show me pictures of the deer that they'd have and whatnot. And it didn't seem like it was actually too bad of a place because it's kind of hilly and got a lot of trees and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I don't want to bash the state too much, but I've heard a lot of bad things about Michigan.
yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I worked mainly when I worked in Michigan, it was in Detroit, so I didn't get to see the real great pieces of Michigan, if there is such thing as a great piece of Michigan. But and I'm an Iowa fan, so you got Michigan State and Michigan there.
Well, if I knew you're an Iowa fan, I wouldn't have brought you on.
I was born and raised, or born and forced into it. My grandpas, or I should say, all three of my grandpas are Iowa fans, so I didn't really have a choice.
There you go. So how long you been hunting?
I probably started hunting. Let's see, I think I started when I was about 10 years old, just going out with my dad. He'd be in the tree stand, and I was sitting at the base of the tree, probably upsetting him because I wasn't sitting still. But 10 years old, I can't see anything. He's up there, he could see everything. So I blame him for that, not me.
I'm surprised you didn't get scared down there having animals walk by.
I loved it because we would watch all the Pursuit Channel or Outdoor Channel, whatever it was back in them days, and I just absolutely loved it. And I got to see a bunch of deer that my grandpa on my mom's side harvested throughout the years, and I just fell in love with it right away. So I was probably more giddy to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning than my dad was, who worked all week as a self-employed carpenter.
When you wake him up, he's probably like, "Get away! I'm trying to sleep."
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. He goes, 15 more minutes, and 15 minutes ago by, and I didn't give him a chance. I just pulled him out of bed.
So was he primarily a bow hunter?
Yeah, my dad was, that was basically all he did. Because actually, when he found out that I was going to be born, he actually got rid of all of his hunting rifles and stuff like that. But there for a long time, from when I was born till I was 10 years old, he didn't do any hunting at all. The only deer that he'd ever killed was a 4 point out in Wyoming, way back in the like 70s or something like that. So that was all he did. And then I don't know what it was. I think my grandpa had an old bow that he wanted to give to me, and so my dad went and bought one himself, and then we just kind of went from there. So yeah, other than that, yeah, he hasn't really done much other than bow hunt. He does go out shotgun hunting, but it's just sitting in the ground blind and watching the world go by.
Did you ever get into the party hunting?
Did so probably for 2 or 3 years after graduated high school. One of the guys I worked with at the contractor, he was in a party of like 7 or 8 people, and he asked me, he goes, "Hey, you want to come along?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't have a gun, but sure, why not?" So walked into Dick's Sporting Goods on a Thursday and bought a Mossberg 500 combo. Came with the rifle barrel with the scope and then the field barrel, and it was only $300. So had a had two guns for the price of one, and went and sighted in that afternoon, and then went with them that weekend. And it was mainly second season is what we would do, just because it was two weekends of being able to go out. So, but yeah, I did that for, like I said, 2 3 years, and then I don't know. Being the young guy, I knew where my place was, being the pusher primarily and whatnot. But a lot of times, what would happen is they're like, "Yeah, you push all these spots. We want to sit here." And then it's like, okay, as long as I can sit at this spot when we push this patch of timber or whatever, I'm fine with it. Like I'll walk all day. But then it was getting to the point of, well, you go ahead and just keep walking. That's like, okay. So after that, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with that. So especially because the one time I did do that, they, the guy that was supposed to push when we got to the timber, he told me to push. So I did. And I'll never forget it. I was on my phone talking to my dad. He was traveling on the road at that time and talking to him about hunting and whatnot. And I'll be darned if I didn't come up on the crest of a hill, turn and look to my left, and there was a 10 point walking
Really?
across the ridge. I'm not kidding you. I was sitting there on the phone. I didn't even hang up. I just said, "Dad, gotta go." Threw my phone on the ground, took my gun off of safety, pulled up, shot him, and dropped him. Picked up my phone, and my dad goes, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "No, I'll send you a picture."
Isn't that unreal?
Yeah, I was just like, man, all them hours of sitting in a stand bow hunting, not making a noise, and you can't get a deer within 100 yards of you. And then all of a sudden I'm trouncing through the timber, talking on the phone with a gun in my hand, and he
Did he know
walks.
you were there?
I had no idea.
Really?
I told my dad, I said, hey, gotta go. Like I said, I dropped the phone, shouldered my gun, and he finally saw me as I clicked the safety. But at that point, I had already had the crosshairs on him. I just clicked the safety over and I was ready to pull. I mean, he was only, God, if he was 25 yards away, I'd be surprised. He was probably closer than that.
Were you just being a little stealthy walking through, or
I wouldn't say I was stealthy, but I would take 20 steps, stop a little bit, just kind of hear what's going on. Because if I heard deer running down the draw, I would kind of walk down that way to try and push them back up the draw towards the people and whatnot. But yeah, it was absolutely incredible and the last thing I ever expected. But of course, when he rolled down the hill, he was on the opposite side of the draw that we needed him to be. So then I had to hoof him up the hill and down the next one and up the other one, and yeah, it was a real fun drag out.
of course, after you're doing all the walking, what kind of conditions were you walking in for that hunt?
It wasn't terrible. It was a pretty mild winter that year. I remember because I was rustling leaves on the ground and whatnot, so it wasn't bad. And I think weather wise, I think I was only in a sweatshirt and jeans, so it wasn't that bad at all.
I know sometimes if it's snowing pretty good, you can sneak up on them, but I've never heard of somebody getting that close and the deer just not even knowing they're there.
Yeah, I the only thing I could think of is they had been this was the second weekend of second season shotgun, and they had hunted first and second, so maybe he was just used to the timber being pushed and was got somewhat comfortable. I have no idea, but it was, yeah, like I said, it was the last thing I thought I'd see while I was pushing, especially to have it happen like that and not be rushed or anything.
Without knowing the situation, my best guess is back home, we've encountered a lot of bucks that are with does right around that Christmas or a little bit before. I wonder
Mhm.
if he had a doe with him somewhere that you never saw.
So I do remember that. Actually, that you say that, I missed her. There was a doe like I don't know 40 yards in front of him. That as he rolled down the hill, I turned and looked, and I saw her, and I pulled up, shot once, and missed at her. But yeah, now that you do say that, there was a doe that wasn't too far away from him because when I saw him, his nose was to the ground and obviously completely oblivious to everything around him.
I'm almost betting that's why, because that it seemed pretty unusual. And
Hmm.
my dad's biggest buck he killed was right at the begin. It was a little before Christmas. It was right as late muzzleloader opened up, and
Hmm.
he was out in the middle of a section with a doe, and he's probably just under 170.
I haven't quite reached that measurement or score wise yet on anything. So you say 170 and me, that's like a trophy of a lifetime for me so far. But
What's your biggest deer so far?
actually, that guy right there, and this was completely unintentional, just the way the lighting is down in my basement. I kind of had to sit in this corner, but I never really got him scored after the drying process, but he scored 2 days after I shot him. I think he was like 151 and 3/8 or something like that. So I'm assuming he's probably right around the 146, 147 range. But yeah, there's a story and a half behind that deer there. That was the first deer that I had ever shot on the property after me and my dad bought some river ground bottom. It's hell. I said I'd never shoulder mount a deer unless it was 150 plus, and then I had to have a buddy come over and help me cape it out because I'd never caped anything out. I didn't want to screw it up, so I was just like, "Hey, I need you to come over here." And he goes, "Are you gonna mount it?" And at the time, I was like, "I don't know. I might just do a European mount." And then he goes, "You're stupid if you if you don't full shoulder mount it." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're probably right." So
Let's
I'm
see
very
him.
happy. I was gonna say I can pull that up a little bit, but
Well, he's a wide bugger.
yeah, he's not very tall. Mass not terrible. He's got a his brow tine is split into three on his left side, so he's like a 12 point or something like that. So
He looks pretty similar to a buck I have on the wall. I'll have to send you a picture, an 8 pointer.
yeah, it's I was tickled pink when I got him because the funny story behind it was is so I pulled down into our driveway to our place and I barely got my truck lights into the field towards where the stands are. And I usually turn them off before I got there, but I'd forgotten. And I'm not kidding you. I just barely got them. And I bet there was 25 sets of eyes just staring back at me. So I was like, oh, okay. They're moving pretty early. And so I hurry and instead of going through the open field, I decided to take off up the road and then hit. So our ground is up on the or down by the Iowa River or right along the Iowa River. So I go up to the river and I just head east. And then there was this big oak tree before it got blown down in the derecho. But I knew that that was only about 100 yards away from my stand. I was like, I just got to walk directly west. So I found my stand. I was sitting in the stand for I don't know an hour and I got there really early for some reason. I think maybe I was just giddy to get out in the stand or something because I usually don't wake up or get down there that early. I'm usually hustling to the tree stand, but um, I was sitting there for about an hour and I took a drink of coffee and it felt really weird. My right wrist didn't feel right. And I was like, God, why does that? It just doesn't feel right. And I sat there and I just thinking, moving it around. And I know why. My release is sitting on the center console of my pickup. Yep. So, hey, and mind you, this is like prime time, like all that half hour before sunrise, you can start shooting a bow. And for me, it just always seemed like the most movement I'd see is between that and like maybe an hour and a half after sunrise. And I was like, gosh, do I do it or do I just try and shoot it with my fingers? And I was like, no, not shooting with my fingers. So I just grabbed my bow and grabbed my backpack. It was still dark enough that all I could see was two does running across the highway when I got to my pickup. Well, behind him, all I saw was antlers. That's all I could see because it out in the open, it was light enough that I could make out stuff a little bit further, obviously in the timber. But I just saw antlers, so I dropped my backpack. At the time, I'd always wear my rangefinder around my neck, and I had the grunt call on my chest too. And I put my release on. I grabbed my bow. I ran like 60 yards into the timber just outside the driveway, and I just sat next to a tree. And I just did some soft grunting, didn't really see anything. Then it started getting a little bit lighter out, and then all of a sudden the does were probably 15 yards away from me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, he was directly behind him. He was about 25 yards away. I didn't have any time to range him or nothing. I just was guessing he was like 35 yards away, but he was standing straight on with me. But I taken a couple of shots like that, and I'm pretty comfortable with it, especially at 25 yards. Well, he was a little closer than I thought he was, and I put it right on his chest, but I ended up hitting him like directly in the windpipe in the throat, and I hit him in the spine, and he dropped. But yeah, he was only 60 yards away from the front gate of our property, and I, if I hadn't have forgotten my release, I never would have saw that deer that morning.
Well, I was going to tell you just go buy a cheap release and throw it in your bag so you always have a backup, but maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Well, I learned my lesson because I bought a UV button thumb release 2 years ago or something like that, and then the old spot hog wise guy is in my backpack for just that reason.
tried the UV button and I despised it.
It took me a lot of time to get used to it. But I mean, it was really bad. I'd sit there, my wife would go to sleep, and I'd be down in the living room, and I would just sit there, and I tweaked it, and I did everything. I spent probably a week of fine tuning it and just using one of those practice draw strings or whatever you want to call them, just pulling it and getting the hinge on the button exactly where I wanted it. And I ordered a different thumb one because the one that came with it I wasn't a huge fan of, so I got the different one, and that helped out a lot. And yeah, it took a lot of time to get used to it, but I like it now. It's a little different hanging it on the D loop instead of having your wrist on the wrist release, but I've come to like it a lot more. But yeah, it definitely took some time.
The issue I had, I'm a big thumb guy release. I'll never go back. And I had a cheap one, True Fire maybe. Loved it. Okay, I got this new Matthews. I'm gonna buy a UV button. And I don't know if it's just the way I was pulling back, but I lost so many arrows because once I got three-fourths the way back, it would just release. I'm sure it wasn't just because it was way too sensitive. The string would like slip through
Flip
somehow.
through the Yeah, it's funny you say that because actually I had a friend of mine right after I bought it. A friend of mine and I were at a in a techno hunt league, and I'd never had any issues. I had it for probably a week, had never any issues shooting it or nothing. But I was pulling it back, and they had their projector. They had a steel plate projector in front of their projector for the techno hunt, and I went to pull back and punch the arrow, and I was like, "Oh, I accidentally," because I had it set to where if you breathed on this thing wrong, it was gonna go. I was like, "Oh, I must have hit it," and I was like, "Okay, one time, it's my fault." Well, then the next round of arrows come up, and I do the same thing, except for I shot over that steel plate and hit the wall back behind the screen, and I was like, I'm looking at the thing, like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, I practice with it enough. I know what I'm doing. Well, come to find out is actually one of them screws came loose. The hinge point of where the button or the thumb part was, it was actually just, it wasn't set. It was just sitting there pivoting. So I would pull back, and sometimes my thumb would be hitting it already when it should be in between my index finger and my thumb. But it was moving, and it would hit my thumb. And as I would get back up, it would just hit it and shoot the arrow.
So I switched. I need to look to see what I got. It's a Stan Onyx Click,
And Onyx.
and it's definitely not as comfortable. I probably should have got a size bigger.
Mm-hmm.
The UV button definitely felt better in the hand, but after losing a couple arrows, I kind of got pissed.
Don't blame you. Arrows aren't cheap anymore.
I have the UV whatever that's called.
Oh, the UV slider.
Love it.
Yeah, I've looked at that. I'm kind of limited on the site that I can shoot right now, unless I get a Picatinny rail mount insert for it. But the Bowtech Core SS that I have is just kind of, it has like the center lock technology is what they call it. So it just mounts, or center mass technology. So everything just mounts in the center of the riser of the bow. So right now, Black Gold was the only one that made a sight that you could actually have for it. But Bowtech came out with, it has that technology where it slides into that thing, but then it's a Picatinny on there. So if you wanted to get like a dialed Arxos or anything that has a Picatinny mount, you can do it now. But when I first got it, I didn't have really too much of a choice. So I'm thinking about either going UV slider. If I haven't looked if they do have Picatinny mounts, but I've really looked into the dialed Arxos because I like how you can customize it with the different colors that you want and whatnot.
Yeah, I've heard good things about them. The thing I like about the one I have, the Ultra View, is the way you sight it in, that center pin is always fixed, so I can pull it off and put a single pin on it, the scope
Mhm.
housing, and don't have to sight anything else in.
That'd be pretty sweet. I have heard that's really nice about that is the cartridges for the housing are super easy to interchange and have different scenarios with them.
What Hoyt bow do you shoot?
So I actually it's funny. I used to shoot Hoy, but now I'm a Bowtech guy. So my mom used to work for Delta Sports Products or Delta McKenzie, um, and when she worked there, their employees got Hoyt bows or Hoyt yeah, Hoyt bows and then like True Glow accessories and Easton arrows and stuff for a pretty good discount. So I was Hoyt through and through. And then I had a Hoyt Carbon Spider Turbo that I'd custom ordered, and I had 80-pound limbs on them. And the limbs were hot. We finally, when I took it over to Shields and we got everything set up for it, it was actually 84 and a half pounds is what I was pulling back. But at that time, was traveling for work and making some pretty good money, and I always wanted to go out west going elk hunting. So I was like, I want heavy poundage because I want a heavy arrow. I want to be able to, if I hit a shoulder blade, I still want enough penetration to kill something. So that was the reason I did it. Well, never did go out there. So the one time I pulled it back and I couldn't stand when I did it because the doe snuck up on me and I actually pulled the neck muscle. I was like, maybe it's time to dial it down. So
That's
I
a lot of
switched
pounds.
over. Yeah. Yeah. It was the first year I ever bought that or had that. I went to the Reinhardt 100 shoot up in Northeast Iowa and I pulled that thing back like 140 times that day.
That'll wear on you.
Oh, I was ready for bed, put it that way.
It's hard on your shoulder.
Yes. Yes, it was. Cause at that time, those high poundage bows and cams weren't as solid as they are now. So it was really, really jumpy. And yeah, that thing would jump on me. If I pulled it back 10 times, it actually jump on me two or three times. So yeah, I kind of wore my shoulder out pretty quick.
Your shoot. What do you think of Bowtech?
I like them. Actually, I shot this guy with a Bowtech Realm SR6. That's probably my favorite bow I've ever had. An unfortunate thing happened to that with that bow, but I like the technology that Bowtech has. They make a really good product and they're not charging you through the roof for it. I don't know. I guess best bang for your buck. I like them a lot and I like how they feel in my hand, especially that grip that they have is adjustable and whatnot. So you can mess with that until it's comfortable for you.
Well, I got to hear the unfortunate story now.
So yeah, so I shot that deer in 2020. And it's funny you say that. I heard on one of your previous podcasts that you're a big fan of Thanksgiving time. And that was when I shot him. I shot him the day before Thanksgiving in 2020. And so get through that season. I go to Shields to make sure everything's still tuned up a couple weeks before the season in 2021. And I go back there and I'm pulling back to make sure everything's in timing. Well, all of a sudden I pull it back and we hear a pop. And the guy I'd let down, and the guy kind of looked at me, and I was like, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah." I was like, "What do you think it is?" We're looking this thing head to toe, can't find nothing wrong with it. So he goes, "Okay, pull it back in." Pull it back, and we hear that same pop again, and I was like, "Okay, something's up." So then we go back to the front, and we put it on the little clamp deal, and we're sitting there looking at it, and I just looked up at the top cam, and I was like, "Oh, I found it." The set screw for the draw length actually ripped through. I was pulling back 30 inches. It ripped from 30 inches all the way down to 26. So I was pulling 26 inches up on top and 30 on the bottom. And that was back when COVID was still a thing and the shipping was really bad. Um, so it was going to be like 3.5 months before I could get a new set of cams for it. Oh, I sat there and the guy looked at me and I looked at him and I was like, well, I kind of don't have a choice if I want to hunt this year. So I sat there and traded that bow in and got a different one. I got the Solution SS. Um, and then I used that thing for 2 years. And then an even worse unfortunate story was as I was hunting one morning with my dad and a friend of mine. Mind you, I'd only had this bow for a year and a half, 2 years. I shot and missed a deer and got pretty upset. And I wanted to make sure everything was still on. So I'm sitting there shooting this bow and I always carry target in my pickup during bow season just so I can shoot at in between hunts and whatnot. But I'm sitting there shooting. My dad had left. Me and my friend shot a round of arrows, laid our bows down, and then all of a sudden my dad decides to show up out of nowhere and he ran over my bow and
Oh
completely
my god.
crushed everything. Yeah. So mind you, this is like November 9th. So like in the prime time of bow hunting. You live for 3 weeks as a bow hunter. It's November 1st through November 20th. And yeah, on November 9th, my dad ran my bow over. And so I was sitting there. I was like, well, I guess I'm heading back to Shields and I got to go get another one.
How long do you have
So,
that bow?
about a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, it was. I went through a rough time there for a minute during hunting season with hunting equipment. It was not good. And the worst part about it was too is when I bought the one that I have now, I had my back was really messed up. Like I had a pinched sciatic nerve, and I couldn't. If I could pull back 50 pounds, I was lucky. But I had somehow managed to be able to pull, and that's the reason too for I like Bowtech is how smooth the draw cycle is on it. It just feels like there's nothing there. So, because I really wanted the Matthew lift in the worst way, but I physically could not pull that bow back that day because my back was that screwed up. So, so
What?
my daddy he lucked out because he bought it. He felt bad, so he bought me the new bow, and I was like, "You're lucky," because I was gonna get something really expensive.
When you tried the lift, did you try the 29 or the 33?
Try them both because I'm 6'4", so I'm a taller guy. So I like a little longer axle, a little more forgiveness. And let's just be honest, I'm no John Dudley. I can't sit there and put a 6-inch group at 100 yards. So I need all the help I can get. But I
It,
like them both a lot.
there's definitely a difference because I had a V3X and I had this shorter one, and I like the compact nature of it.
Hmm.
And that's what I was planning on getting. And the guy's like, well, just try. This is the Matthews lift. Just try the 33. I pulled it back. World of difference on terms of the draw cycle, just so much
Uh-huh.
smoother.
Yep. Yep. And for me, I'm being 6'4", I got a pretty long draw length. I think that one has an extra inch and a half on a 29 for draw lengths. Don't quote me on that, but it's kind of nice to have that little bit of extra where I'm not completely maxed out on the cam mod or something like that. So
What do you
nice to
shoot?
have.
29?
Before I switched to the UV button, I was a 30-inch draw, and now with the UV button, like a 29 or 29 and a half. So just because of how long that housing is for that UV button, it just kind of gave it a little more compared to that spot hog that I use. It was a real short one, so I needed all the draw length I could get out of it.
And I feel like a gorilla because I'm shooting 29.
I don't have a very long wingspan.
And I'm only just under 6 foot. Ladies, if you're listening, I'm actually 6 foot, not
I
five
was just
eleven
gonna
and a
say,
half.
are you a 5'11" and 3/4 guy, or are you a 6 foot?
Depends who's asking.
Right. It's funny. A couple friends and I had that discussion the other day, and the guy was like, "Oh, I'm 5'10," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not 6 foot." And he just started laughing.
It's the barrier to entry, man.
Right.
So,
I think.
yeah, the one thing I've always had a Matthews, it was the Matthews Adrenaline and the V3X and now the lift. And it's just the accessory lines I like. I really like their quiver. I like how their sight mounts and their stabilize. That's the main thing that draws me into Matthews. But next time I probably should shoot different bows. But if I buy an Elite, the accessories just aren't as good. You don't have that real tight quiver package. And
Yeah, that's what drew me to when I went to go get a new bow after my dad ran it over was because of all the stuff. I mean, you got Matthews has their own line of accessories, and that they're gonna be there. They're gonna if they carry a Matthews bow, they're gonna carry the accessories. So it was I really wanted to, but I just physically couldn't do it. And it's funny because when I was shooting Hoyt, I when we go to sports shows or something like that, I'd hold a Matthews in my hand. I hated it. I couldn't
really,
stand it because of how it always felt like it was so top heavy that I was having to constantly like pull the front of the boat up because it was wanting to fall forward, and I didn't like it. And then it was a V3X I picked up one time when I was traveling, and I was like, ooh, okay, it's a lot better than it used to be, and it for my feel anyway. Um, yeah, and then when I picked up and picked up that X or the lift, I was very impressed and wanted it in the worst way, but just didn't happen.
they're all pretty comparable. I mean, no,
Yeah, everyone has their own. likes and dislikes of anything. Like I got some friends that are wanting to get into it and they're like, oh, because you got a bow tech and you've been hunting for a long time, like, oh, I need to get bow tech. I'm like, absolutely not. Honest to God, truth. If you shoot better with a company that I don't like, I'd rather have you shoot that. I want to hear your success stories. I don't want to hear how 6 months down the road you'd be like, oh, I wish I would have bought something that I shot better. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the whole purpose of of having a bow.
Yeah, I got a couple buddies that are obsessed with the Elite.
I got one or two as well. I've shot those great bows. Don't get me wrong, not for me. Not sure why. Just didn't feel as good as the Bowtech does. It's gonna be really tough for me to get away from the Bowtech draw cycle. I mean, it is butter smooth.
Is
It's
it?
a game changer. I mean, I went out turkey hunting last Friday and a Tom snuck up behind me, didn't see him, just grabbed my bow, and no joke, I'm still trying to look at him. I'm not even paying attention to my bow. I just grab it and I could pull it back like this at 73 pounds, no problem. I mean, he saw me pull back up and he ran away, but yeah, I not even in the shooting position or anything like that. And that's how smooth and easy it is to pull back. I was, out here away from my body and I pulled 73 pounds back.
Bunyan over here.
I wouldn't go that far. Just
I've heard the newest PSC is butter smooth pulling back too.
I have seen some TikTok videos and just social media videos, I guess, follow a lot of outdoor channel stuff, or not outdoor channel, but outdoor stuff. And yeah, I've heard that too of the PSC. A lot of guys are actually making switches from different companies and for guys that were diehard Matthews or Hoyt guys or whatever, like I'm gonna actually go with the PSC this year.
Yeah, I want to say the guy at Lancaster Archery was always a Matthews guy, and then he switched. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think I remember reading an article about that. As I don't know, I'm a tech nerd kind of guy. Like when new gear comes out, well, all the new bows come out, and just hop on the websites and read or get different reviews on things from different sources, and just to mainly kill the time. Yeah, there was a lot of guys that were saying that they were switching, and I think you're right when you say the Lancaster supply guy was one of them.
So where do you get a lot of your gear reviews from?
It's kind of all over. There's a guy that's down in Georgia. He goes by, I think his TikTok name is Botok or something like
Yep.
that.
I've come across him.
Like if he just is completely unbiased and everything, when the new stuff comes into his shop, he really just lays it out on the line. He goes, yeah, if you got money, you can afford this, yeah, this would be great. But if you're a middle of the line guy, it's not worth it. Go with something, whatever. And I like reading his stuff. And then like on, sounds really bad, but Reddit, I follow a couple of outdoor forums on there and they just post when all the new stuff comes out, reading there and reading a bunch of reviews from everyone that's already bought it and whatnot. So just kind of hodgepodge here and there. Some days I got more time on my hands than I know what to do with, so I start reading.
I've kind of got into TikTok reviews.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess we'll find out this weekend when I go turkey hunting if what they said on TikTok was true about turkey loads with a modified choke and a Remington 870 Express. We'll see if it works or not.
Modified choke.
Yeah, I got this gun from it was my uncle's. And when he passed away, he gave it to my grandpa. And then when my grandpa passed away, I got it and it was just in it. Today was actually the first day I shot that thing and I've had it for 4 years. It's just been sitting in my closet. So I was like, well, heck, I got my bow turkey tag. I can try season 4 with a shotgun or whatever. So it'd be kind
What
of interesting.
they recommended a modified choke.
So they don't recommend it. They just told me what rounds to use if you don't have like a full choke or all the ones that you can buy, the upgraded ones, which I tried to find one a couple times and they didn't have them in stock for the Remingtons. So I thought about ordering one online, but at this point it's just like, well, maybe I'll just try and shoot one with a bow. But if I fill the tag, then yeah, I'll go try and fill one with a shotgun. But yeah, I took some turkey loads out today and shot and patterned them at 20 and 30 yards and enough to kill a kill a turkey. Let's just put it that way. So,
What kind of ammo are you using?
so I tried the super cheap route with the Winchester Super X's. I would say that's probably pretty effective, out to 25 yards. And then I got the Winchester Longbeard XRs, I think. They're both 3 inch, 5 shot. And that's the first time I've shot a 3 inch since I was shotgun hunting back in 2012 when I sighted my gun in. The guy thought it'd be funny to throw a 3 inch slug in there and without me knowing it. And then all of a sudden I was bleeding from my eyebrow because I got scope bite. But yeah, my shoulder doesn't feel 100% right now and feel like I got uppercutted by Mike Tyson in my cheek.
That's probably why my younger brother doesn't hunt. Is he must have been 10 at the time, and we did something similar, except we went up another half an inch, three and a half
Oh,
inch turkey load in there.
I'm 6'4", 280, and I felt like I got punched in the face pretty hard by somebody. I could about imagine a 10-year-old with that. Man,
They say that TSS is pretty good, but I don't know about paying 13 or 15 bucks a round.
yeah. No, at that point, that the gun better shoot itself and kill the turkey for me if I'm going to spend that much money on ammo. Don't get me wrong, if you get a tight pattern right away, technically a box of shells should last you about 5 years if you get two tags or whatever, 2 times a year and you're done. But still, for 13, 15 bucks a round, no way.
So, looking back to your hunting, what are some of your favorite hunts? Do you have any hunts where maybe when you're younger that just kind of got you hooked?
It was probably, I don't really know what got me hooked. I think what got me hooked was just seeing the deer when my grandpa would shoot one and we'd go see him and whatnot. But like, as far as for me personally, like a hunt that stands out the most, obviously the day that I killed this one was great, but 25 or 23 at the time when I did that. I would say I was probably 14 was the first time I ever saw two bucks fighting in the woods, locking antlers and just going, I mean, knock down, drag out thing. And I'm like, I saw it in my mind. I'm like, oh, I just saw that on the outdoor channel. Like, that's super cool. And just seeing it live and hearing all the noises that they made and whatever else. And I was just like, I'm just sitting there, eyes as big as they could get, just staring at them. Mind you, I could have probably shot them. They were only 15 yards away, but I was so starstruck. I'm just like, okay. And yeah, I'd say ever since then, it's just kind of been a pretty good passion of mine as far as putting in effort and time to go hunting and whatnot. Even when I was traveling the country for it, at least go 1 or 2 days on my weekends home.
Sounds like a baby crying.
Yeah, my son does not like bedtime. I'll tell you one thing: when he does go to sleep, he sleeps for like 12 hours. So
Really? Well, that's
I'll
good.
take I'll take a little bit of crying before bed and sleeping through the night than the stories that I've heard of people saying that the kid didn't sleep for the first 3 years of their life.
Well, you better watch your words because if you have another kid, that one's probably not going to sleep.
I know. I told my wife that she wants to have another one. I'm okay with not having one, but we'll see what happens.
I don't think you're going to win.
Probably not. Not if I want to keep hunting and fishing and doing my hobbies. Probably not.
Do you do any bird hunting?
So back when I worked first started shotgun hunting, me and that coworker that helped me sight in my gun and got me hooked up with party hunting and whatnot, we would just go to public ground that you could walk around in and try and shoot pheasants. I don't think we ever saw one. We heard them, but we never actually flushed one out. Just two guys walking through tall grass isn't real effective, but I'd like to get into it because on our property we have like, I don't know, 45 acres of WRP ground. Um, that you hear them all the time. And actually, on Friday when I was hunting down there, I had like three roosters just walking 15 yards away from me, from my blind, just not having a care in the world. It was kind of funny. The Tom that was in my area, he was gobbling back and forth after the rooster would sit there and cackle and whatever. It was pretty entertaining.
Were they walking through the woods or what?
They were. They were out in the short grass. They were just kind of grazing. We had just the weekend before we burned everything off, and they were just kind of grazing through because it rained the night before, so it was pretty soft. So I'm sure there was some bugs crawling around, but they actually did walk into the timber and whatnot. There's been a couple times I've been in the timber deer hunting and just hear a crash, and I'm thinking it's a turkey coming out of the roost, and no, it's a pheasant flying through the timber. And I was like, that's the last thing I thought I would be seeing. Here we
I don't know
are.
if it's always been like that, but where I hunt, there's a lot of pheasants because I hunt 40 acres and there's 80 acres of CRP on both sides.
Hmm.
And there's pheasants in the woods all the time.
Really?
I don't know if that's just they've evolved because it's safe.
May-
I don't know.
I say maybe they have just because the fence lines have gone down and as far as in the fields and whatnot. I mean, yeah, whether it's a evolving thing or where they feel safe type of thing, I don't know.
Timber cocks.
Yeah, right.
That's what we call them.
I got my wife saying that all the time now when we see one when we're driving somewhere. Because first time I was like, "There goes a cock," and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's pheasant." And now I'll sit there and just say, "Oh, there's a pheasant." She goes, "No, it's not pheasant. It's cock." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, I love pheasant. I used to go all the time before I lost my dog. Now,
Hmm.
haven't replaced her, so I just don't make it out more than once a year, but it's pretty fun if you get on a lot of birds.
That's what I've been told. A lot of people say that's their second favorite hunting. Everyone always says their favorite hunting is turkey. Last year, I found out why a lot of people say that, but I still just love deer hunting and whatnot. And got a couple friends that have some labs and whatnot. Actually, one of my friends, his dog just got done with training, I don't know, 2, 3 months ago. So I think we're going to try take him down there this fall and see if we can't flush out a couple birds.
Turkey hunting's all right. I haven't been in years. I think it just doesn't do much for me.
So, funny story about turkey hunting. The first weekend I went out, just set a blind up because the highway project that I was on last year happened to be the highway that runs right along our property. So I'm driving by my hunting property 3, 4, 5 times a day. Scouting was pretty easy for me last year, but I just seen some turkeys in the morning and in the evenings, kind of in this corner, and just set up a blind there just from what I saw from the road and whatnot. But the weekend that I actually did go, it was pretty cold and windy, and they were in the timber, and I got frustrated, so I started walking in there and whatnot. I tried to find an area, and then I ended up spooking a couple of them. So I got so mad that I just packed up my blind, packed up my everything, and just took off for the truck. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. This is stupid. Well, then the next weekend, my buddy wanted to go, so took him down there, and I hadn't set up the blind yet again, so we were having to set it up, and we were walking in, and we got back where the blind used to be, and I was like, well, we could try it here. We could move in a little further back to where I flushed out all them turkeys and whatnot. And I'm not, as soon as I started talking, all of a sudden, like, Tom just gobbled in the roost. And I'm like, well, we're going to set it up right here. So I had the decoys. My buddy had the blind. He said, go set up the decoys. I'll start getting the blind. I was like, okay. So I literally set the hen and then a quarter strut Jake right there. And I'm not kidding you. It wasn't from 5 yards away that Tom came out of his roost and landed like almost landed on top of me after I set he landed right next to it, ran up to that Jake, smacked it, and then just took off across the field.
Before
And I
you
said,
even got a chance to shoot him?
yeah, it was, man, it was so dark. We got there like 45 minutes early because we had to set up the blind. I wanted to get down there and get set up and whatnot. And it was super dark. We ended up seeing that bird because he kept in the field and whatnot. And that morning we ended up seeing like 12 different toms and like 20 hens and a couple jakes. So it was really cool. And it was kind of a foggy morning down on the river bottom. So it kind of added a different sense of it to it. So it was kind of cool. You just see these toms all strutted out, just walking through the grass with the fog behind him. It was pretty cool.
Didn't
But
get one?
no, never did. Got close a couple times as far as getting pulled back, but never was able to get one. So hopefully this weekend I'll be able to either get one or get my brother-in-law. He's going to come with me, go turkey hunting this weekend, and hopefully one of us will get one.
You got a lot of turkeys around?
Got a pretty decent amount, kind of hit or miss. I think I think there was more last year, but then that rain that we got towards the end of May, early part of June, our ground flooded for like 4 or 5 weeks. There's like 4 foot of water on it. So I think that might have killed off a lot of their nests and whatnot. So I mean, I've only gone out one time, but in the fall, I didn't see a whole lot walking around. But I guess we'll just have to see.
Did you find any good sheds this spring?
So listening to your other episodes of podcasts, the last one that just came out, he said that he had probably 50% of his deer herd taken out by EHD. I bet we had 85%.
No kidding.
Was terrible. I can't confirm this 100%, but a friend of mine has like one of his friends works for the DNR or something like that down in the Tama County area. And they said in one day from Chelsea, Iowa to Tama, Iowa, along the Iowa River, there was over 200 confirmed cases of EHD in less than 24 hours. And there's a couple people that hunt within like a mile and a half of our property, and I'll send you the pictures of the deer. And this was within, I think he said he'd only been walking for 20 minutes and he had found probably five 160 plus deer just
Real.
laying there dead. Yeah. So last year I kind of noticed a pretty big decline. And then this year, I'm not kidding you, I used to see probably a dozen deer within 50, 60 yards a night. And then last year it was kind of on the slow end, but still see 5 or 6 deer. And I was fine with that. This year, if I saw 12 deer total through bow season and shotgun season, I'd be surprised.
That bad, huh?
It was that bad. I did shoot one. I shot a small, like not a small, well, smaller 9 point, but at that point, it was like, what do you do? And I had heard from a few people that in the areas where EHD is bad, shoot all the brush bucks, smaller bucks, and leave all the does alone. And hopefully next time the rut rolls around, when the the bigger bucks that did survive, there's not as much pressure or competition for them does. They'll hang around and stay there. So I shot him, and that was it. So
I wonder what the recovery period is on a deer herd.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I'm hoping it's not long because it kind of wasn't frustrating. I get it. Mother Nature takes care of itself at all times and whatnot, but just going down there and just trying to get away from work and relax a little bit and be out in the woods and whatnot. It's kind of nice to see a deer or something, kind of get your adrenaline pumping and whatnot. But yeah, sitting there for 5, 6 hours and not even seeing a tail bounce off through the timber was pretty frustrating this year.
Saw a TikTok Lee Lakowski was on talking about CWD. So he said CWD is overhyped and
Mhm.
all the attention's on that with the government and whatnot. But he said EHD is way, way, way worse than CWD on their herd health. And he's probably accurate because the number of deer you see die from EHD is way more.
Yeah, it was so, and I would probably agree with that because when I went to college, I went for natural resource management. We actually had to go and do like CWD testing up in Chipola, Iowa, and they were kind of explaining how everything goes. And like CWD, you kind of the deer has to touch a physical touch has to happen for it to pass on to something to another animal. But EHD is just that midge in the mud. It bites them and they get a fever and they're dead within 36 hours after they get bit. All every deer that I've found on our property and that I've heard is within 200 yards of a water source. So it's
Even the rivers.
in the rivers. Yep. We last year I shot a buck during shotgun season. Never did find him, but we found probably 4 or 5 deer on a friend of mine owns the 148 acres across the river from us, but we were on his property because that's where he had ran. We found 4 or 5 deer all within 200 yards of the river of his that had died from EHC.
Well, that takes care of my theory. Back home in north central Iowa, we're on the Wapsie, and we
Mhm.
haven't really had any issues with EHD yet. And my theory was because we're on a river bottom, you just don't have, I don't know what I was thinking. It's not like a low marsh
Yeah,
wherever.
you don't. I think you said on your previous podcast was is you got the fresh water coming in. which I thought was a very good hypothesis about it as far as fresh water coming in, changing things or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I hope somehow, some way, in the end, it's gonna be okay. But right now, it's pretty bleak, at least on our hunting ground. We only got 100. I shouldn't say only 105 acres. We're fortunate enough to have 105 acres of our own, but it really, really hit hard down at our place.
I wonder if we're just far enough north.
It could be, and because I know it kind of worked from like the southwest Iowa and just kind of slowly made its way up. I know a bunch of the older guys that are still around talking, like you say, it's just blue tongue. We always have had blue tongue, and blue tongue was bad back in the day. And it's like, it's very similar to it from what I understand, my understanding of everything, but it's not quite as bad as a blue tongue was. But I think it's going to end up being worse as far as decimating the deer population in Iowa.
Yeah, maybe it's just gonna keep working north and we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I pray for you guys that it doesn't. But yeah, I eventually it'll happen. It's just like the CWD. Was in Missouri and that southern Iowa and just slowly creeping up. I think there was a couple of confirmed cases in western Hardin County, which is only a county over from me and whatnot. So yeah, it's just probably a matter of time. Like I said, Mother Nature will take care of itself.
Yeah, before my time, I guess the deer numbers were really low in Iowa. Apparently, there never was many deer in Iowa at all.
And that just seems hard to believe.
That would have been 50, 60 years ago, from what I understand.
Maybe the farming industry has helped with that because we got thousands and thousands of acres of food plots for them.
Well, just look at pheasant. I know habitat has a lot to do with it. It kind of went away, the habitat, and came back, but the pheasant population was completely decimated. Apparently, in the mid late 90s, there's a lot of pheasant, and then they went away, and now it's pretty good.
Yeah, I've noticed a huge change around here. Probably 10 years ago, you didn't even hardly see any pheasants, and now driving around for my job, I see them all the time, and it's great. I love it.
You think there's a lot of
But
pheasant?
me not being a huge pheasant hunter, I don't know. I can't answer that question. But just from what I saw 10 years ago driving to now, there's definitely a lot more. Now, total numbers wise, I have no idea.
I came across some numbers, and I was thinking the same thing. Man, we got it pretty good now. This is good. And I believe at the time, maybe a year or two ago, there's maybe 200,000, 250,000 birds shot in Iowa. Back in the heyday, early 90s, is over a million.
Holy smokes. So to answer your question, no, there's not a lot of birds.
It's pretty good hunting in Iowa now, but I remember when I was younger, we'd drive down roads called Pheasant Alley, and we just see so many birds. But to put in
hmm
perspective of having four times as many birds as we do now,
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. My grandpa used to tell stories of when they lived out in the country. Just walk down, they had like a half-mile gravel road from the road to their house, and he'd walk one way and he just had a little 410 shotgun and he'd get his limit every time he went out just by walking down towards the road, and that was it.
a lot of people spraying, not necessarily clearing out fence lines that hurts, but just the spraying of fence lines and getting rid of all the weeds that can hurt them quite a bit too.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true or not, but I had heard something about red-tailed hawks were really bad for them. Like they decimated the population. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I'm sure it does, but
definitely the habitat more than anything. I mean, they ain't got nowhere to hide, obviously.
and I'm sure the predators don't help, but you'd think it'd take a lot of predators. And there
Yeah,
are a lot of coyotes out there, but I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but if you got 120 birds in an 80-acre CRP, it'd take a lot of work for the coyotes to clean those out.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe that's why they're starting to live in the woods because coyotes can't get them.
It's true. I know down at our place, well, it was the same time a couple days after I shot that deer, took a friend of mine down there. and we counted 15 different coyotes run across the sandbar,
Really?
just in a single file line, just straight across the river. It was absolutely incredible. I was like, the time that to have an AR-15 would be right now
You ever
because
done the
from
thermal hunting?
I have not. I've seen some videos. I'd really like to. That's very expensive.
I had two thermal scopes and a handheld, like complete setups. And I've
Mhm.
sold a scope and the handheld trying to sell my other scope to support this business. But oh my God, it was fun. It was so much fun.
One of my coworkers, one of his friends has a really, I don't know the brand of it, but he has a really nice one and he'd send him videos and it's just like watching on a big screen TV, just how clear the picture is. And it's like, God, that'd be fun. My dad told me he has a bunch of hotel points from working on the road and he's thinking about cashing them in at Cabela's and buying like a $7,000, uh, is it Pulsar? Is that
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pulsar.
Oh, yeah. He can cash in like 3 million hotel points for all these gift cards at Cabela's. And he's like, I think I'm going to buy a thermal. And I'm like, you don't do any gun hunting.
It's the wildlife evolves. Just in the past 3 years of me thermal hunting, it's changed quite a bit because thermal prices are dropping, so more people are getting into it. Seems like every Tom, Dick, and Harry's thermal hunting now, which is good, but it you get more people out there calling and educating the coyotes. And you used to be able to sit out in the middle of the section and call them right to you every time, and it's getting a little tougher.
Yeah. I mean, nature's been around for how many years? They're going to get smart eventually. I actually shot my first coyote this year while I was shotgun hunting. I shouldn't say I was I was shotgun season with a 350 Legend. Shot it about 70 yards away. Didn't see it till about 30 yards away. It snuck up on me so quick or
Were
so
you sitting
quiet.
on the
Like
ground or in a tree stand?
I was sitting in a tree stand, just happened to turn around and he was 30 yards away from me, and I was like, "Where did you come from?"
They're
Nice
stealthy,
trap.
man.
Oh my god, I can't believe how quiet they are.
Just
Just
imagine a mountain lion sneaking up on you if you think a coyote's quiet.
yeah, I don't even want to think about
Just think
that.
about that when you go to bed tonight, or next time you walk out to the timber in the middle of the night.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about that is I was in high school and I was coming home from my girlfriend's house one night, and there had been some confirmed sightings of a mountain lion around my hometown. And I'm almost positive that I saw one. All I saw was this 6 foot long tail just diving down into the ditch, and then that's all I saw. Yeah, cannot confirm that it was one, but I'm almost positive it was. And yeah, that's always in the back of my mind when I'm walking to the timber and a mountain lion just sitting up in my seat waiting for me.
Yeah, it crosses my mind too much walking out. No, nobody's 100% comfortable walking out to the tree stand. If you don't get a little jumpy, you're lying.
Yeah, you don't have a pulse, in my opinion. I mean, there's times even now just walking out, and I just got a 400-yard walk across an open field, and then I walk 15 yards into the timber, and the stand that I hunt, those times right there. And as soon as I walk into the timber, it's just like looking around because I'm thinking somebody's just staring at me from 10 yards away, and I can't see them. You
Yeah,
see all them videos of the skinwalkers and whatever else. It's like,
the skinwalkers.
have you ever seen that on social media at all? Like down in Texas and like out in the Smoky Mountains and stuff like that? How animals act all weird and they just kind of like stare at you through a window in people's houses and stuff like that. Or if you get time, I don't recommend doing it before bed, but if you get time during the day, just type in skinwalkers and it's weird.
I thought you're going a completely different direction because my mind went straight to Joe Dirt. He puts the lotion on.
If I wasn't all fired up about thinking about a mountain lion, I probably would have thought about Joe Dirt.
He puts the lotion on. Yeah, if you don't get edgy walking out to the tree stand when it's pitch black and walking through a timber and hear a branch crack,
Snap or yeah, you're full of shit. Yep.
one of the scary. I want to say scary. It wasn't scary, but it scared the heck out of me. Is I didn't realize turkeys roosted in my tree, so I'm climbing up. It's pitch black, and go to grab the branch to crawl in, and there must have been a turkey right on that branch, and they make quite a bit of noise when they fly away. I about jumped out of that tree stand so fast.
Had the same thing happen to me. I climbed up the tree, sat in it, and I kept hearing some rustling around above me again, thinking it's a mountain lion just ready to pounce. I turn and look up, and a turkey like 10 feet above my head, and it just dive bombed right beside me. And I'm pretty sure my dad heard me kind of yell out because it scared the crap out of me. But yeah, it was like you said, they make a lot of noise. It's like, how do you guys not get killed every day?
Have you ever about stepped on one doing shotgun push?
No, I haven't. No.
They hang tighter than a pheasant, man. They will not get
Really?
up and fly away until you're about to step on them.
Pheasants make a lot of noise when they bust out. Imagine a bird 3 times its size making all the noise.
You'll lose your breath if you almost step on one.
That's bad enough. Putting all the scenarios in my head with myself, and let alone thinking about that.
So, do you, before we wrap this up, you have any other embarrassing stories other than screaming like a girl when a turkey flew out of the tree?
Embarrassing stories. I would say a pretty embarrassing story is I was probably 18, maybe. I was hunting and I had a 6 arrow quiver with me, and this doe walks by, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna shoot it. That way I can sleep in before instead of having to wake up early on my weekends when I didn't have basketball or football or anything like that. But still walks by. I'm not kidding. She's like 15 yards away, and there's a small tree right behind her um, that I had ranged, so I knew she was within. Because I think that if I remember right, it was 17 yards, and she was just on this side of it towards me. I shot and missed that same deer 6 times.
6 times?
6 times.
What was the
Yep.
issue?
I have no idea. Don't have a clue. Don't know why.
Did you double check, make sure you're sighted in when you got home?
Yep, I'm pretty sure my dad had a target, and I had some arrows in the truck, and I was hitting pretty. That time, I wasn't that great of a shot, but if I shot at the target at 40 yards and I just hit it, I was happy or whatever. And yeah, I was sitting there shooting a group at 30 yards, probably 7, 8 inches. I have no idea. I think I just got so excited about shooting a deer because at that time I hadn't shot a deer yet. I think I had been bow hunting for 8 years and I hadn't shot a deer yet. So I was just getting so excited that I would sit there, I'd release my arrow, and I would drop my bow immediately so I could watch the arrow hit. And it was just always low, always low, always low. I actually Robin Hooded one of my arrows that was stuck in the tree. So to add insult to injury, I lost an arrow there. At least the other ones I could just unscrew the broadhead out of it. But yeah, I actually Robin Hooded an arrow. I've done it once, and it was because I missed the doe 6 times.
She probably walked away with some cramps after laughing so hard.
I would assume so, because the funny part is she just nonchalantly just kept walking. She sat there the whole time. She didn't even move. She'd hear the smack, and she didn't know where it was coming from, and she just would look around, and then she'd go back to grazing. I think she might have taken 3 steps in that whole process of me shooting 6 arrows. And mind you, I had my quiver off my bow, so it was hanging in the tree. I would have to reach up, grab it, knock it, pull back, shoot, and she just sat there the whole time, and I missed 6 times.
She wasn't very educated, was she?
No, absolutely not. I'm gonna guess it was probably a pretty young doe, because usually them mature does they spook at the first sign of a rustled tree limb out of nowhere.
Yeah, the old does are pretty hard to fool.
Yeah, I that was actually my first bow kill was like a 7-year-old doe, and the guy that let us hunt on his property, he just looked at me. He goes, "I don't know how you get," because he lived on the property and he pretty much knew everything about it and knew the travel patterns and whatnot. And this doe had a white mark on her shoulder blade, and so he knew it. He recognized it after I shot it. He goes, "I don't know how you shot it." He goes, "Most guys can't get within 200 yards of this deer." And that was funny too. Yeah, because I ended up shooting that deer the next season. I bought my tag the night before, had my tag for like 12 hours, and I was tagged out. But before that, it was like 8 years of hunting and never tagged, shot a deer.
That was your first deer?
That was my first year. It took me 8.5 ish years to get one.
And it was that one that he was surprised you killed it?
Yep. Yep. Because he goes, "This is probably the most mature doe on the property."
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, man.
You were talking about that on one of the episodes, and I am that 99% luck, 1% skill guy. I would rather be lucky than good.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it doesn't work out very well.
No, no. I would say it's worked out about 12 times to my advantage as far as bucks go. Probably 20 times for bucks and does where I've been successful. But other than that, how many hours have I put in the stand? I probably don't want to know.
Yeah, it's kind of a time suck, but it's worth it.
Yeah. A lot of people told me when I was younger I needed to go to church. And I'm not saying church was a bad thing by any means, God fearing man myself, but there was just something about waking up and just watching nature go by when the sun was coming up and whatnot, and just listening to the birds and watching everything happen. Like this, that was my church. So that was pretty. The woods have always been pretty special to me as far as getting into it, but being able to say that aspect and then hopefully here in 4 or 5 years be able to share it with my son would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I know my dad, he's pretty pumped to get his grandson out in the woods. He actually bought a find at the deer classic. It was a 8x6. And I said, "Why do you need one that big?" And he goes, "So I can take my grandson hunting." And I'm like, "Cool, I'm glad that you want to take me hunting, but it's fine, Dad. I'll get
What
over
kind of
it."
what kind of blind did he buy?
I can't remember what it is. It was one of the vendors there. I don't think it was a redneck one or anything like that,
But
but
pretty similar.
yeah, pretty similar. Really nice. My dad, he has found a couple of old gravity wagons that farmers have, and he buys them, and then he just puts in some floor joists and puts OSB on the top of it, and then just puts the ground blind on it. And then I don't know how he thought about this, but and then he bought a bunch of trailer jacks and put them on the four corners of the wagon, and then has a bunch of. My dad has a sawmill, so he cut a bunch of logs up and uses it as dunnage, and then he uses them jacks to get the trailer off the ground and have that thing set perfectly level instead of whatever the lay of the land is. But yeah, he's got like 4 or 5 of them like that he can just pull around and do whatever he needs to do in.
That works pretty good. How does he get away with putting OSB on the top?
He just uses some self tappers and he just goes down into them joists that he put in.
But that stuff soaks up a lot of water, though.
I know. I don't. I had told him the same thing. I was like, "How come you're not using whatever?" He goes, "It'll be fine." I was like, "Okay,
For a
well."
year.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, whatever, you do you. But my dad, so he was a really good carpenter. He was a self-employed carpenter for like 40 years before the recession, and then so he knows all the different types of sealants and stuff. He probably put sealer on it if I had to guess. That is helping it, but obviously it's not gonna save it. But
I'm sure he knows more than us.
yeah, that's why I can't wait to have him repay for all the bundles of shingles I carried up the roof for him during the summertime. Can't wait for when I redo my kitchen and he builds me custom cabinets.
Is that what he did? Is built custom cabinets?
He did that. My dad did everything as far as he did roofs, did trim work, he did cabinets, he did built desks for people, entertainment centers, just everything. Anything you can think of, installed windows, siding. He was just a self-taught guy that was really good at it.
Well, that's going to come in handy for you someday.
Absolutely. And like I said, I can't wait to cash in because there was a lot of shingles during the summer times that I had to carry up the roof.
Someday, man. But it is good catching up with you. I'm glad to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you reaching out and asking. Like I said, didn't even in my wildest dreams ever think I'd hop on a podcast and talk about my lackluster career of hunting, but here we are. I enjoyed it. So
Yeah, there's a lot of hunters out there. Not it's a pretty small percentage of them that are out killing 200-inch deer all the time.
I always said if I shot a 200-inch deer, I'd probably have to be retired because I'd probably be disappointed the rest of my life.
You'd get a big head on you like the rest of them.
I mean, I would think it, but in the back of my mind, I'd sit there and think about that doe I missed 6 times at 15 yards and then realize I just got lucky killing the 200-inch one.
I think I shared a story about me missing a doe 3 or 4 times with a muzzleloader on the first episode.
Yeah. Wasn't it your scope was loose or something like that?
Yeah, at least I have something to kind of give
Blame
me
it
an
on.
excuse. Yeah,
I was just very excited to shoot something, and I didn't shoot nothing. Killed that tree, though. Guarantee it.
and a couple arrows.
Yep. Yep, for sure. For sure, one at least.
Cool. Yeah, man, it's great having you on for all our listeners. I think this is probably going to be episode 6 or 7, maybe 8. So we might be up to 30 listeners by the time this launches in a few weeks. So hopefully you're liking what we're doing so far.
Absolutely. Looking forward to more coming out.
You bet, man. Tell all your friends and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Till next time, stay calm and shoot straight. That might be overused. I'm going to have to come up with another punchline. All right.
Hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Catch you all on the next episode. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of A Hunter's Legacy. Remember, hunting isn't just about the harvest. It's about the journey and the legacy we all leave behind. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with all the other hunters in your life. And if you have a story to tell, we'd love to hear it, because every hunter has a legacy worth sharing.